We'll be starting with Niti Aayog in this video. By the mid 2014, India did show a quite strong mandate and a very stable government came at center. We find the new government showing a renewed vigor and zeal in several areas. One such area has been its attempt at redefining the federal polity of the country for the purpose of promoting growth and development. We see a pronounced policy shift in the direction of empowering and keeping state in front by giving them more financial space and responsibilities. Keeping its promise in this direction, the government abolished the Planning Commission and replaced it with a new body, that is the Niti Aayog. The acronym NITI stands for National Institution for Transforming India. We see the government aspiring for the emergence of Team India in the new body. It will be premature to conclude planning to NITI, as the government calls. Even an academic comparison between the old and new bodies will not serve enough purpose, as it needs some times when the outcome of change will be available. Judgment on the shift will only good once it is done after some period of time. In the meantime, India remains a planned economy. The discussion given here is mainly based on documents releases which came out from Government of India before and after Niti Aayog was set up. That is January 1st, 2015. In these documents, the government has not only provided as the reason why does India need to go in for a new body, but charts out very encouraging and out of tradition roles and functions for the new body. An attempt has been made to closely follow the government line of thinking so that the spirit of it is not lost. Now, transforming India. The government aims at transforming the development agenda of India with the help of Niti Aayog and has given a slogan from planning to Niti. India has undergone a paradigm shift over the past 6 decades, politically, economically, socially, technologically, as well as demographically. The role of the government in national development has seen a parallel evolution. Keeping with these changing times, the government decided to set up Niti Aayog as a means to better serve the needs of aspirations of the people of India. The government thinks the new institution to function as a catalyst to the developmental process, nurturing an overall enabling environment through a holistic approach to development, going beyond limited sphere of public sector and government of India, which will be built on the foundations of an empowered role of state as an equal partner in the national development, operationalizing the principles of cooperative federalism, a knowledge hub of internal as well as external resources, serving as a repository of good governance best practices, and a think tank offering domain knowledge as well as strategic expertise to all levels of the government. A collaborative platform facilitating implementation by monitoring progress, plugging gaps, and bringing together the various ministries at the center and states in the joint pursuit of developmental goals. Changing contours of India. Now, the government agrees that the Planning Commission has served India well. However, India has changed dramatically over the last 65 years at multiple levels and across varied scales. These transformatory forces have changed the very contours of India, highlighted by government documents in 5 areas. Demographic shift. India's population has increased over threefolds to reach 121 crore. This includes an addition of over 30 crore people to urban India, as well as an increase of 55 crore youth below the age of 35, which is more than 1.5 times the total population of the country then. With increasing level of development, literacy, communication, and aspiration of the people have soared, moving from scarcity and survival to safety and surplus. Today, we are looking at a completely different India, and country's governance system needs to be transformed to keep up with the changing India. Now, economic shift. India's economy has undergone a paradigm shift. It has expanded by over 100 times, going from GDP of 10,000 crore to 100 lakh crores at current prices to emerge as one of the world's largest economies. Agriculture's share in GDP has seen a dramatic drop from more than 50% to less than 15%. The planned size of 43 lakh crore of 12th plan dwarfs the plan size of 2400 crore of the first plan. Priority strategy structures dating back to time of the birth of planning commission must be revisited to align with the shift the sheer scale. India needs to overhaul the very nature of planning process, the government says. The shift in private sector, the nature of the Indian economy and the role of the government in it has undergone a paradigm shift driven by an increasing open and liberalized structure. India's private sector has matured into a vibrant, dynamic force. The sector is not operating just at the international cutting edge but also with a global scale and reach. This changed economic landscape requires a new administrative paradigm in which the role of the government must evolve from simply allocating resources in command and control ecosystem to a far more nuanced one of directing, calibrating, supporting and regulating a market ecosystem. National development must be seen beyond the limited sphere of public sector. Government must thus transition from being a provider of the first and last resort and major player in the economy to being a catalyst, nurturing and enabling environment where the entrepreneurs shift of all from small self-employed entrepreneurs to large corporations can flourish. This importantly frees up the government to focus its precious resources on public welfare domains such as essential entitlements of food, nutrition, health, education, livelihood of vulnerable, marginalized groups of the society. Forces of globalization. In the recent decades, the world at large has also evolved. We live today in a world which is a global village connected by modern transport, communication, and media, networked international markets and institutions. In this milieu, India's economic actions contribute to the global dynamics, while our economy also gets influenced by the happenings far away from us. The framework of policy making, together with the functioning of the government, needs to incorporate the realities of our continuing integration with the global economic system. Role of the state. Indian states have evolved from being mere appendages of the center to being the actual drivers of national development. The development of states must become the national goal, as the nation's progress lies in the progress of states. As a consequence, one size fits all approach, often inherent in centralized planning, is no longer practical or efficient. States need to be heard and given the flexibility required for effective implementation. The government quotes Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to bring the point home. It is unreasonable to centralize power where center control and uniformity is not clearly essential or is impracticable. Thus, while emanating from global experience and national synergy, India's strategy needs to be calibrated and customized to local needs and opportunities. Technology paradigm. Technology advancements and information access have unleashed the creative energy of India. They have integrated our varied regions and ecosystems in an interlinked national economy and society, opening up newer avenues of coordination and cooperation. Technology is also playing a substantial role in enhancing transparency as well as efficiency, holding the government more accountable. Thus, India needs to make it central to systems of policy and governance. Now, change must come. The above given changes have been recognized by the experts for a year now. With changing contours of the economy, the institutions guiding the economy should also change. The government quotes several such instances when appropriate change were advised in the Planning Commission by experts, committees, even the Planning Commission, among others. The eighth plan, that is 1992 to 97 document, the very first after the reforms process commenced in 1991, categorically stated that as the role of government were revived and restructured, the role and functioning of PC2 needed to be rethought. The PC also needed to be reformed to keep with the changing trend, relieving itself of the old practices and beliefs which had lost relevance and adopting new ones based on past experiences of India as well as other nations. Specifically, the PC needed to be in tune with the process of economic reforms. The Standing Committee on Finance of the 15th Lok Sabha observed in its 35th report for demand for grants 2011-12 that the PC has to come to grips with the emerging social realities to reinvent itself, to make itself more relevant and effective for realigning the planning process with economic reforms. and its consequences, particularly for the poor. This was the need of making the planning process relevant to the process of economic reforms. The former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, in his farewell address to the PC, also urged reflection on what was the role of PC needs to be in the new world. Are we still using tools and approaches which were designed for a different era? What additional roles should the Planning Commission play, and what capacities does it need to build to ensure it continues to be relevant to the growth process? This observation has quite high relevance as Dr. Singh himself is a noted economist. Taking the clues for a change, the government quotes Mahatma Gandhi before going for the change. Constant development is the law of life, and the man who always tries to maintain his dogmas in order to appear consistent drive himself into a false position. The government adds further, keeping true to this principle, our institution of governance and policy must evolve with the changing dynamics of New India while remaining true to the founding principles of the Constitution in India and rooted in the Bharatiyata or wisdom of our civilizational history and ethos. It was in every sense a kind of pledge to devise India's own means, methods, tools, and approaches to promote development. For the government, Niti Aayog is to be institution to give life to these aspirations. The Aayog is being formed based on extensive consultations across a spectrum of stakeholders, including inter alia state government, relevant institutions, domain experts, and the people at large. Now, functions of Niti Aayog. With the process of maturity deepening in India's nationhood, the country has excuse me, embraced a greater measure of pluralism and decentralization. This necessitates a paradigm shift in central government's approach to the governments in state as well as at local levels. The state governments and local bodies must be made equal partners in the development process through the following changes: understanding and supporting their development needs and aspiration, incorporating varied local realities into national policies and programs with required flexibility. This way, the new body, that is Niti Aayog, is designed to live up to the principles of Team India, with which its following officially demarcated functions: cooperative and competitive federalism. It will be the primary platform for operationalizing cooperative federalism, enabling states to have active participation in the formulation of a national policy, as well as achieving time-bound implementation of quantitative and qualitative targets through the combined authority of Prime Minister and Chief Minister. This will be by means of systematic and structured interaction between union and state governments to better understand development issue as well as to force a consensus on strategies and implementation mechanisms. This would mark the replacement of a one-way flow of policy from center to state with a genuine and continuing state-center partnership. The Ayog is supposed to further this cooperation with the enhanced vibrancy of competitive federalism, the center competing with the states and vice versa, the states competing with each other in joint pursuit of national development, shared national agenda. It will involve a shared vision of national development, priorities, strategies with the active involvement of the states. This will provide the state framework, national agenda for prime ministers, chief ministers to implement. States' best friend at center, it will support states in addressing their own challenges as well as building on strengths and comparative advantage. This will be through various means such as coordinating with ministers, championing their ideas at the center, providing consultancy support and building capacity. Decentralized planning. The new body is to restructure the planning process into a bottom-up model, empowering states and guiding them to further empower local governments in developing mechanisms to formulate credible plans at village level, which are progressively aggregated up to higher levels of government. The maturing of India's governmental institutions had enabled increasing the specialization of their functions. There is thus a need to separate as well as energize the distinct strategy element of governance from usual process and implementation element. As a dedicated think tank of government, Niti Aayog will carry out this directional role, strategically charting out the future of the nation. It will provide specialized input, strategic, functional, and technical to the Prime Minister and government, central as well as state, on matters critical to the fulfillment of national development agenda. It means the new body is to function like a think tank, vision and scenario, to design medium and long term strategies frameworks on the big picture vision of India's future across schemes, sectors, region, time, factoring in all possible alternative assumptions and counterfactuals. This would be the driver of nation's national reform agenda, especially focused on identifying critical gaps and harnessing untapped potentials. The same would need to be intrinsically dynamic with their progress and efficacy constantly monitored for necessary mid course recalibrations, and the overall environment, that is domestic and global, continuously scanned for incorporating evolving trends, addressing emerging challenges. This would mean a fundamental transition from merely planning for where the nation's money goes to planning where we want the nation to go. And given its unique position as the aggregator and integrator of all developmental initiatives of the Government of India, the states, the new body would be ideally suited for the same. Now, domain strategies to build a repository of specialized domain expertise, both sectoral and cross sectoral, to assist ministers of the central and state government in their respective developmental planning as well as problem solving needs. This will especially enable the imbibing of good governance best practices, both national as well as international, especially with regards to the structural reforms in the country. Sounding board to be an in house sounding board vetting and redefining government positions through objective criticism and comprehensive counterviews in economy. Network of expertise to mainstream external ideas and expertise into government policies and programs through a collaborative community of national and international experts, practitioners, and other partners. This would entail being governments linked to the outside world, roping in academia, that is, universities, think tank, and research institutions, private sector expertise, and the people at large for close involvement in the policy making process. To bring the point home, the document quotes Rig Veda: "Let us welcome noble thoughts flowing from all directions." Knowledge and Innovation Hub, the body to be an accumulator as well as disseminator of research and best practices in good governance through a state of art resource center which identifies, analyzes, shares, and facilitates replication of the same. The document further adds an increasing mature Indian population has steadily increased the focus on and demands for actual delivery and results. To keep up with such enhanced aspiration, the new body will have to have the mandate to go beyond mere planning and strategizing to facilitate implementation of the development agendas as well. This would involve making implementation centers and planning process through an emphasis on tangible outcomes, realistic targets, strict timelines, and robust monitoring and evaluation. A transition from the isolated conceptualization of merely planning to planning for implementation. It will also act as a catalyst to the government machinery at large, filling gaps, enhancing capabilities, and declogging bottlenecks as and where required. Now, harmonization to facilitate harmonization of the actions across different layers of the government, especially when involving cross cutting and overlapping issues across multiple sectors through communication, coordination, collaboration, and convergence among stakeholders. The emphasis will be on bringing all together on an integrated and holistic approach to development, conflict resolution, to provide a platform for mutual resolution of intersectoral, interdepartmental, interstate as well as center-state issues, facilitating consensual, acceptable and beneficial to all, to bring about clarity and speed in execution. Coordinating interface with the world, it will be a nodal point for strategically harnessing global expertise and resource in India's developmental process, coming in from across nations, multilateral institutions, and other international organizations. Internal consultancy, it will offer an internal consultancy function to center and state government on policy and program design, providing framework adhering to basic design principles such as decentralization, flexibility, and focus on results. This would include specialized skills such as structuring and executing PPP, capacity building to enable capacity building and technology upgradation across government, benchmarking with latest global trends, and providing marginal and technical know-how. Monitoring and evaluation, it will monitor the implementation of policies and programs and evaluate their impact through tracking of performance metrics and comprehensive program evaluations. This will not only help identify weakness and bottlenecks for necessary course correction, but also enable data driven policy making, encourage greater efficiency as well as effectiveness. Now, the guiding principles, they are Antyodaya, inclusion, village, democratic dividend, people's participation, governance, sustainability. Now, structure of the Niti. The Ayog will have the lean organization with chairman, that is Prime Minister, Governing Council, all chief ministers, regional councils, special invitees, full-time organizational framework. Now, specialized wing in Niti Ayog. There will be a research wing, there will be a consultancy wing, there will be a Team India wing. Now, vehicle of good governance. Now, major documents of Niti Aayog are aimed at the following idea of vision and planning scenario. Niti has been working on 3 documents, namely 15-year vision, 7-year strategy, and 3-year action agenda. While the last 2 have already been published, work on the first one is still in progress. A brief introduction of the 2 documents have been given below. Now, the 3-year action agenda, increasingly rubberized economy and changed global dynamics needed new tools and approaches to promote developmental process. The 5-year plans were not vibrant enough to these changed realities. An outcome of these extensive consultation between the government and the various stakeholders, including economists, scientists, and journalists, NGO, industry associations, experts from education, health, culture, and other areas. The draft 3-year action agenda 2017-18 to 2019-20 contains 7 part and 24 chapters. The action agenda is actionable as well as aspirational, which touches several areas of importance, such as it proposes reduction of the fiscal deficit to 3% of the GDP and the revenue deficit to 0.9% of the GDP by 2019-20, doubling farmers' income by 2022 together with an emphasis on job creation in industry and services, generous floor space index, flexible conversion rules advised for urban areas, encouraging development outcomes in northeastern regions, coastal areas, islands, North Himalayan states, deserts and drought-prone states to take care of regional issues, emphasis on transport and digital connectivity. Under energy section, it aims at consumer-friendly measures, reducing cross-subsidy in the power sector and reforming coal sector by setting up regulator. Under the science and technology, emphasis is on PPP and creation of a National Science and Technology and Innovation Foundation to identify national issues and streamlining patent regime. To promote governance, shrinking role of the government is in undesirable areas. Now, tackling tax evasion, expanding tax base and simplifying the tax system and strengthening public procurement, undertaking judicial system reforms, use of ICT and cutting workload, police reforms at state level to promote the cause of rule of law, shift from input-based to outcome-based in education and skill development, focus on public health through significantly increasing government expenditure on it, building an inclusive society, adopting sustainable practice, tackling city air pollution, policy towards protecting tree, sustainable use of water resources. Now, 7-year strategy framework, titled as Strategy for New India at 75, it defines clear for development objectives, seeking to make development a Jan Andolan, mass movement aimed at making India a $3 trillion economy by 22-23. It is a detailed exposition across 41 crucial areas covered in the same number of chapters that recognizes the progress already made, identifies binding constraints, and suggests the number of way forward for achieving the objectives. The 41 areas have been discussed into 4 sections that are driver, infrastructure, inclusion, and governance. Driver focuses on the engines of economic performance with chapters on growth and employment, doubling farmers' income, upgrading the science and technology and innovation ecosystem, promoting sunrise sectors like fintech and tourism. Infrastructure deals with physical foundations of growth, which are crucial for enhancing the competitiveness of Indian businesses and also to ensure the citizen ease of living. Inclusion deals with the urgent task of investing in capacities of Indian citizens. The 3 themes in this section revolve around the dimension of health, education, and mainstreaming of traditionally marginalized sections of population. Governance delves deep into how governance structure can be streamlined and processes optimized to achieve better developmental outcomes. The recommendation of Niti Aayog in the document are practical and detailed to facilitate time-bound implementation by 2022. New India will provide a solid foundation for clean, inclusive, sustained, and sustainable growth for the next 3 decades. Now, Niti's performance. Some experts and most of the political parties in the opposition bench were quite skeptical about the very idea of Niti Aayog. Naturally enough, this skepticism was more due to abrupt disconnect being affected by government under which economic think tank planning commission was abolished, which was the old and the very existence as old as the very existence of independent India itself. The prevailing breach of trust and lack of cooperation between central and state governments were among the major reasons for indifference shown to the Niti by the experts, the political analysts, and the political parties. Though it will be too early to pass a judgment on its performance, till some major examples can be cited in this regard. Probably the first major work by think tank was its smooth deliberation with the states in restructuring the existing 66 centrally sponsored schemes into 30, giving them more impact, visibility, and flexibility. The spirit of cooperative federalism has been greatly strengthened through Niti Aayog. It has been able to lessen the situation of breach of financial trust between center and state. Implementation of indirect tax and reform GST has been greatly enabled by Niti Aayog to promote cleanliness, several other variables of human development and ease of doing business. The think tank has launched several indices and started ranking the states, ultimately enhancing the spirit of competition among the governments. It has been able to educate and make states aware about the importance of promoting economic reforms in the country. It is this platform that the states have encouraged to go for Uday scheme aimed at financial turnaround of the state electricity boards or discoms. This is an optional scheme, but due to increased awareness among the states regarding the importance and need of factor market reforms, most of the states have opted for it. State governments positively taking part in Niti initiatives to yield aspirational targets and actionable means, Niyatam, which under which their administrative, developmental, and legal structure are aimed to be streamlined. Niti Aayog advice of land pooling has been very well received by states, which has smoothened the issue of land acquisition for different purposes in the country. By now, Niti Aayog has come up with several reports on a variety of sectors to enhance the process of the development in country, taking states as an integral partner from which range from sports to irrigation to health to education. Budgetary and extra budgetary financial allocations to states from center have also become quite smooth, unlike past when states used to always have complaint against planning commission in this regard. As Niti Aayog monitors and collects developmental data on real-time basis, unlike planning commission with almost 2 years of data lag, the element of accountability has improved, which has enhanced the quality of governance. This way, we find Niti emerging into a better think tank than the erstwhile planning commission in fostering the spirit of federal cooperation. Besides, in the process of transforming the development agenda of India, it has introduced new tools in this regard based on highly developed objective methods of monitoring and evaluation. That'll be all for this video. Thank you.